You want to hit the great?
Just advise everybody that the meeting is being recorded, please.
That's fine. All
Okay.
right, great. Hi, my name's John Burr. I was 2023 chair. We'll see what happens this year. Calling the Armory Park Historic Zone Advisory Board meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. And we will go ahead and do roll call. I'm here. Helen?
Here.
Pat?
Here.
Maurice?
Here.
Stan?
Here.
And Lynn?
Here.
Great. We're all here. All right. They were not posted on the links on the PDSD page, but they were posted by the city clerk and I sent them to everybody. We've got the minutes from the December 19th, 2023 meeting, minutes/LAR. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Thanks, Stan. Do we have a second?
I will second the motion.
Thanks, Maurice. Great. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
I guess we're doing roll call. I say aye. Helen?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Maurice?
Aye.
Stan?
Aye.
And Lynn?
Aye.
Great. They passed 6-0. There we go. Item 3, call to the audience. Does anyone want to say anything now? We can also do a second call to the audience later on in the meeting. Anyone have any comments? And Michael, I assume nothing was received by your office.
No, we did not receive anything.
Okay, I'm not seeing any hands up, so we will move on to item number 4, reviews. The first case is ATP-PRE-0124-00010 100 East 12th Street, which is actually 220 South 5th Avenue. And who is here to present?
I am here to present Jasmine Chan with the City of Tucson Parks and Recreation, as well as our consultants from ARC Studios, Eric Barrett and Matt Smith.
Okay, ARC Studios. Great. So, shall we, Michael, can you give screen sharing to,
Sure.
will you be doing it?
No,
I will not need it, but I think Eric or Matt might need it. So if that capability can be rested upon them.
Okay.
Okay. Whatever they need, let me know.
Okay. I will go ahead and get started just to kick off kind of the framework for this item. So in the summertime, the City of Tucson kicked off the project over at Armory Park. This is funded through Proposition 407, the Parks and Connections bond that was passed in November of 2018. So in the Armory Park project, we have identified already a few items through the bond ordinance to be addressed. So one includes restrooms, a shade over the stage, new benches and picnic tables, renovation of sidewalks and plaza area, as well as area lighting throughout the park. We've engaged with a couple of preliminary conversations between the City of Tucson Parks and Recreation staff, ARC Studios, our consultant on this project, as well as members of the Historic Landscape Subcommittee, members of the Public Neighborhood Association, all of that to inform what concepts can be put forward, as well as an initial survey on what amenities people would like to see. So we are here today with a concept plan for a courtesy review from the Historic Zone Advisory Board, and I'll pass it off to Eric and Matt for their presentation.
Thank you, Jasmine. I will share my screen in a moment. And it's disabled for me.
Who's going to share the screen now? Matt?
Not
Yes.
working for me.
Matt would like to share his screen.
Okay, Matt, just give me a minute.
Okay.
Let me make you a co-host so that you can be able to share your screen. Go ahead. You should be good to go.
Perfect. Everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to present our master plan, our conceptual master plan. As Jasmine stated, we've been working on this for the better part of 6 to 9 months, working with the City Parks Department and various stakeholders, including members of the community, historic board, city council. And this is a conglomeration of all the feedback and all the historical information we've had. So we'll jump in with a existing context and kind of the framework for what guided our concept. So we had 3 driving goals with this concept and the improvements for the park. One was to reduce and eliminate vehicular traffic within the park. Another was to activate the park and try to restore and bring back some of the historical uses. We know that there's horseshoes and shuffleboard to the north side of the park that aren't used. So how do we activate that space, bring people in with modern amenities that will be used? And then the last was just an overall restoration of the historical context of the park while maintaining those historical concepts, but bringing in modern amenities, as I mentioned. So up on the screen right now, our main focus for this project is just the block that contains the park and the recreation center. We are showing some concept for a playground in the North Children's Museum, but that is more or less a separate project, and we're just conceptually showing that at this time. Some of the key features on here, you can see in the aerial, multiple cars parking. They're coming in through both the south entrance and the north entrance. The stage to the south side of the park, not in the historical context, and then the unused shuffleboard, horseshoes, and bocce, as previously mentioned. So jumping into the conceptual plan, we have a few goals with this. One was to restore the stage, make it more useful, bring it to an area that's more in the historical context, enlarge the stage, to engage multiple users, multiple uses. The other was to bring back the trees of the park, both in kind of an alley and the perimeter trees. With the parking improvements over the years, we couldn't work through the double line of trees along the perimeter, but we put in a double line of trees down the center of the park and kind of shifted around the walkways, making the best of what we have with the 1970s improvements and trying to bridge that with now and with the historical context. So the center part of our concept is this relocated stage. The stage currently is shown about 30 by 60, so greatly larger than what is currently there. I guess I shouldn't be saying stage, it's more of a multi-use plaza area. The stage is not elevated, it's going to be flush grade. Any of the existing concrete plaza space that's there right now will be removed. The existing trees that are in those square planters will be removed. And we're just bringing back a larger, more functional use area. Over this performance plaza area will be a shade canopy. We haven't determined what that will be, whether it will be a solid roof or whether it will incorporate some form of band shell, going back to, again, the historical context of the park, or if it will be shade sails. Shade sails are probably the least preferred and the one that we're going to explore last. Out from this plaza area, stage area, we align back with the diagonal sidewalks. Going towards the west, towards the east, back to the recreation center, there's a little bit of a grade change, so we're proposing some planters, some ramps, some stairs to bring that circulation from the recreation center out to the park in ways that meet accessibility. We've incorporated a 10-foot wide north-south sidewalk. This would be vehicular access, unloading, offloading for any performances in the park. That would be controlled with bollards and limit any vehicular access into the park, different from as it is now. The big change, and the one element we are proposing to incorporate, is a dog park. A dog park was based on multiple surveys and neighborhood feedback, and this was the top desired amenity. The dog park is more or less located in the existing footprint of the shuffleboard, the horseshoes, and the bocce. One of the fence lines is parallel to the existing sidewalk, so the sight lines to the stage are maintained. We feel that in this central north section of the park, it doesn't impede current usability and will not impede future usability. The fencing for that dog park works around the existing trees, and then for that, all but 2 existing trees outside of what's in the plaza space will be preserved. There are 2 trees to the north and south of this linear sidewalk that will be removed, but they could stay. We are just proposing to remove them to keep this strong alley of trees. Other elements of the proposition and feedback we're working on are renovating the existing restrooms on the north side of the building. One option would be opening up the walls and increase visibility, security, safety to that. We don't have much conceptual information on that at this time, but that's one thing we're continuing to work through. The last element we've explored with this concept is parking. Currently, staff parks in the park, and we haven't provided parking for them. We're proposing in the island along 5th to add in 8 spaces for staff, and this would eliminate them parking within the park. Other parking changes would be just restriping the perimeter, adding in spaces where we can, if we can, and then adding accessibility spaces right to the bathroom, the restroom building that we are renovating for accessibility. We go now to some precedent images. So these are options we were exploring for different shade structures. These are prefabricated, semi-custom. We could also explore fully custom, as I mentioned earlier, maybe incorporated a band shell. Swing Associates is part of our team, and we are discussing with them options for this. And the last bit of information are some of the trees and materials we're proposing for this concept. Historically, there were Arizona ash that flank the sidewalk, double course of trees along the perimeter. Some of those still remain very sporadically. We are proposing, at least on the inner side of the sidewalk, to put this band of trees back and proposing that they be Arizona ash. As far as that central north-south array of trees, Chinese pistache or Joe Laney oaks would be 2 species we are considering. Great shade canopy fit within the character of the park and other parks in town. And then one of the last trees we are looking at, more of a native tree, some of the would be an ironwood, specifically for the staff parking along 5th, where there's some existing saguaros, and that would all tie together. Surfacing, most of the park surface that's not grass would be 1/4 inch minus decomposed granite. Where possible, we could compact this for areas like the dog park, or if we wanted to incorporate games or other amenity areas within some of the larger open spaces. So it just provides a lot of flexibility while keeping with the character that's already there. As far as the sidewalks and the new performance area, proposing concrete, it would be just a standard gray broom finish to match existing. But then where the stage or the performance area is itself would be some sort of different treatment just to set it out. Maybe an exposed aggregate or some different type of concrete. And then lastly, with the fence, we know the park doesn't have a fence currently, and we went around the neighborhood and looked at fencing options that we may be able to incorporate that are within the character of Armory Park and in the historical context. So 2 images I'm showing, or we're showing, Bloomin' Inn, one of the oldest buildings in Armory Park. Figured this would be a great example of a fence we could incorporate. And then across the street, a more modern version of that on East 13th. And then we are showing the 2 options that we could use that resemble these. One on the left has a arch top to kind of cover the picket, and it would be a more safe version in case somebody hops the fence, gets pierced, anything like that. But we could also go to the more historically accurate of Armory Park with just staggered pickets. I'm going to go back to the conceptual site plan. I will turn it over to Eric if he has anything to add. Otherwise, open it to questions.
Matt, do you want to touch on the playground? I know it's a separate project, but at some point, with all the feedback, the playground was a desired component.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So again, we are working with Swaim Associates on the playground and Children's Museum. This was another item from the surveys. It was probably top 2 on neighborhood requests for amenities. We looked at different areas within the park of placing the playground, and ultimately it felt best to move it to the Children's Museum block on the north side, in keeping with that children's theme. Currently, we're showing utilizing most of the existing grass, possibly turn that over to artificial turf or some rubberized surfacing that mimics the existing grass, while preserving the existing palms that are around. And then for a barrier along East 12th, it wouldn't be a formal fence. It would be what we're calling an artistic barrier. So it could be elements of sculpture, pots, metal objects, just a visual deterrent and a physical deterrent to keep kids out of the street. We are still exploring this, both with the expansion of the Children's Museum on the north side and how that interest then incorporates into this, and then exactly what play elements to bring in. But currently we are just showing some natural play elements to show arrangement and spatial composition, just to get an idea of how things would work on the side of the Children's Museum.
Thanks, Matt. Jasmine, anything you want to add to that? I mean, I know the reason we are breaking these up into kind of like 2 different projects is because they are 2 different types of projects, but we've been asked to kind of look at several different issues that are impacting Armory Park itself, and we are very conscious of the historical nature and trying to also meet the current needs of the community and what needs to be done. So from that, if there's anything else that Jasmine wants to add, then we want to open it up to questions, comments, and feedback. Again, we would like to kind of focus on the 2 different projects and not go back and forth. So if we could focus primarily on Armory Park primary and then come back to the Children's Museum area, we can talk about that one as a separate item, if all possible.
I don't have anything to add. Thanks, Matt and Eric.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got a couple questions for you. When I saw this, I was surprised that it hadn't gone to the landscape subcommittee of the Historic Commission prior to us, but I understand it's now scheduled for this Thursday. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Steve Grady, was unable to make it, is not here, but Jan Mulder is also on the landscape subcommittee. So after the board, I may ask her if she has any comments. You know, obviously I'm going to just say a couple things and then open it up to the board and then come back. Obviously, I don't think we're married to the 1975 bocce courts or the shuffleboard, and their use is down. I am really perturbed about using the public area as parking, and that happened since COVID, and that's really unfortunate because staff have always parked in front or in the area that is now being enclosed at the south of the park. That was done through a separate permit that we reviewed last year, which is proposed to only be for the bans for overnight parking. But just here, I understand that there are 2 old ashes that are gone, but I can't tell if the Aleppo and the, I think, pines are being retained. There's no question of the lighting here. There has been a band shell at Armory Park since 1910. It predated the original Armory, so I hope you can include that in a very new structure, which is a little too premature for me to gauge. But I'm concerned about the original 1974 plantings that are around the trash area to the north and in the planter basin that are shown as being removed on this plan, and the saguaros and the other things that are now in the desert landscape area that's kind of down to a couple saguaros and a couple of agaves, where you're proposing those with some new trees. But I think this is really early on. I also noticed that there are 3 Armory Park double globe lights in the park. One of them is not missing, is missing on the north where the bocce courts are, because of that other lighting. And so any plan should include a replacement for that and some sort of a balance for the other things. But before I get into any, and I'm not even going to comment about the Children's Museum yet, let's open it up to the board, and I'm going to go through alphabetically. Helen, you're up. Comments?
Whoa. I apologize for my voice. I have a bit of a scratchy cold, so if I become unintelligible, please let me know. First of all, I would like to congratulate the planners on understanding the traditional outlay of the park. And I'm impressed by the fact that you are looking to restore the focus to the center with the band shell. I think that's a major improvement here. I also feel that given the location of the bocce courts and things like that, that you are selecting an appropriate area for the dog park. So I think in terms of general planning, this is a great improvement. I would like to ask a couple of questions here. One is turf. You are planning to retain the turf as the basic character of the park?
Correct, yes. The turf will be maintained.
Okay, and what exactly is happening between the platform or band shell and the circuit? Yes, exactly, in that area. What is that? Is that turf?
That would be turf, yes.
Okay. About the band shell, which I think, again, I'm very pleased that you've relocated it here. I'm wondering if you could consider that sort of the Spanish tello. If you look at your photographs of what you have here proposed, the second one on the left side, that is basically a freestanding platform. it would also be possible for that roof, rather than being a stable roof, to be a movable roof that you could move back and forth, depending upon the season, because there may be times when you would actually want not to have that roof. And so that would give you an additional alternative as far as the performance space is concerned. Fencing, as far as the dog park is concerned, looking at it, you could look at that from two perspectives. The one that you're looking at is taking characteristic features from Armory Park and using that as your basis. But you could also take a look at how to create the greatest transparency, because dividing up these park spaces is not typical of this kind of historic property. We worked with this at Ansa Park, and it might be possible to come up with a fencing design that was as transparent as possible, and which I think might be another alternative there. Are you using DG for the dog park?
We are, yeah, but it could be a similar treatment to Anza where it's turf until the turf dies out, if it dies out, and then DG is the alternative.
Yeah, I just wonder what the dogs are going to like most, given dogs in Tucson.
Yep.
Has anybody had any success in maintaining turf in dog parks?
I think the best example is Anza. That's been going strong for 3 years now, I think. And we would have to reach out to city maintenance on that park and get their feedback.
Well, that would be interesting, because that would be another way to maintain continuity from the turf in the park through the dog park. In other words, the goal here, minimizing the sense of intrusion that you would have with the dog park, rather than taking part of the park and separating it off for that use. It would be more transparent and linked to the rest of the park design.
That's a great point.
Yeah. And the other thing that I would really encourage you to think while you're doing this, the trees age out. Trees just do that, unfortunately. And I'm wondering if part of this could be to incorporate either an interplanting or a second planting row that would reinforce the structure, the vegetation structure of the trees in the diagonal. And I know, Eric, we've talked about this in the past, how do you handle this difficult situation? But I think this would be a wonderful opportunity to consider how you would proceed with something like that.
Are you thinking with the Italian cypress or just any of the trees?
Well, the Italian cypress, but those weren't always cypress. They were also, I believe, elms. Am I right? Not elms, but ash.
Everything was ash at one point. It was a double row of ash kind of all throughout the entire site from the 1918 photo, I think is what we saw.
Right. And so I think one consideration might be interplanting. I don't know, I haven't looked lately. What is the condition of those cypresses?
They're in pretty good shape. There's some big ones that may get the spider mites, but they have been replaced in kind with other replacements, the ones that died out a number of years ago. So there is a complete allier of those.
So I understand, Helen, you're saying basically maybe look at coming in between the Italian cypress and replacing them with ash or even pistache or something. And
the idea being that I've seen this done in Germany frequently, that you do the interplanting or the adjacent, alley with the idea that they know that these trees are probably going to succumb at some point. And it's just a way of looking ahead to the future. That, you're never in a situation where you have no trees in the alley. So are there other changes here that I haven't noticed that you'd like me to take a look at?
I don't believe so, Helen.
Okay, well, I have to say, I really appreciate the approach of talking about conceptual plans at the beginning, because it just makes it so much easier than waiting until people have already got their feet stuck in the dirt, and then, where do you go from there? So thank you very much.
Thank you. That was a wealth of knowledge between you and Steve, and all the information you shared really guided our concept.
Great. Next up is Pat. Pat, comments.
Well, I would like to congratulate the group for it's easy to understand. The design is easy to understand. It seems that all of the historical structures or monuments have been provided for. I was also curious about turf in the dog park, but I think that can be a conversation that evolves over time. And I think it's a really great initial shot here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Maurice.
Yeah, hi. First of all, I want to congratulate the team for the new design for the park. I think it is very good. I think putting the bandshell, I mean the bandstand in the middle of the park is where it belonged in the first place, and that is definite plus. We'll be looking forward to get a nice shell to put on top of it to make it really attractive. But the fact that it is central is really, really important. I have been to a number of musical venues at Armory Park, and the whole park at times gets used up by vendors, by people just around, and that central location of the bandstand is really, really good. Okay. At the same token, I have a problem with the dog park. Are you familiar with the McDonald park on the east side? It's it has a dog part built into it, and I think it's at least an acre park. It seems to me that those bocce courts have been used in the past for the people that have been coming to venues. Now we are removing those available spots from those people. Number one. Number two, if you look at the size of the small dog park and the large dog park, they really don't measure up. Okay. If you've gone, this is a urban situation here. It's what happens when people, especially in Armory Park, when people go for a walk with the dogs, they go 10, 15 blocks around, and they actually go around the neighborhood. That's what Armory Park is famous for. I can't see, constraining dogs in those two particular spots. Besides the fact that, like Helen was saying, at this point, it doesn't look like turf is going to be used. And I got news for you, dogs love turf. Okay. The whole point of a dog park is to allow the dog to roam around. Okay. Those surfaces do not cut it. Besides the fact that it's taking space away from the public that comes to those venues. So I'm really happy that this is, we are the conceptual, moments, okay, where we can still go back and refigure things. Because, I just think that those dog parks do not belong there. There's other areas, okay, not far from it, and where other dog parks, it could be built. I just think that space is really at a premium in Armory Park, in that particular park, and giving that little space for dogs is going to take a lot of space out of people. So I don't think it's a correct move. Okay. I heard you mention before, as far as the elevation of the bandstand. Okay. When I was younger, I belonged to a few bands, and I played it at Armory Park and other places. And I can tell you, as a musician, being above the people is important. You don't want to be at the ground level. Okay. You want to be able to project, okay, your art, your music. Okay. And you do that best when you're at a certain elevation. So I'm just going to bring this, like I say, from my musician's experience. Okay. As far as the show itself, well, it's not the Hollywood Bowl, so we don't expect the city of Tucson, to come up with one of those gorgeous, shells like they have over there. But we could be very creative. I like those cell ideas. Okay, they're very convenient because they could be removed fairly easily. Okay, they're easy to replace if they get ripped or damaged. Okay, and they could be configured in various ways. So I think it's something that needs to be looked into, but that could be a good venue. Those cells, I think, are really a new tool, that we should be using. And that's about it as far as Armory Park.
Thank you. And that reminds me of one thing I forgot to mention, that we are anticipating a rental platform for any large performances. But to your point, it would eliminate any impromptu performances. They would always need to bring a portable stage with them.
Okay, that sounds good. There has been a bandstand at Armory Park, an elevated bandstand at Armory Park for a number of years now, and I know its situation is not ideal. Okay, but I think that elevation is important. I mean, I understand your point. You can always hire companies to bring some kind of platform, but a lot of peace fairs and other low budget organizations that do give venues in that park do not have the budget to go for extra elevation and stuff like this, and that already elevated bandstand comes really handy.
Maurice, Stan, you're up next for comments.
Yes, I have several comments. The first one I have is it says stage without overhead shade, stage size and orientation are not historically accurate. I remember when the Armory was there, I don't remember a band shell, but I'm assuming you're telling me that that band shell was basically where you've got it oriented, where you've got it located now, and that the orientation was to the west. Is that correct?
More or less, yes.
It was originally incorporated as part of the Armory building. It was built prior to it, and it was a very large half shell open clam that was in the report I sent you. An image.
I didn't get a report.
Okay. Just for public disclosure, I did send out to the board the conservation master plan that was prepared in 2018 by Steve Grady. That is expected to accompany when the National Register considers adding Armory Park and its contributing elements to our National Register listing. I'm not sure of the status of that report. I can get it to you all if you don't have it. I'm sure it will come up at the Historic Landscapes Committee. But it identified all the contributing features and non-contributing features and what were elements of the but yes, there was.
All right. Okay.
Been,
my question is, to take it further, is that if there was, and there was a band shell there, I think we need to get as much evidence and record and of that as possible, because I think it's something that we should consider to use in terms of actually developing a band shell or a stage. I mean, if we want to be historically accurate, let's try to see if we can somehow incorporate the original design, maybe modified something, but at least be respective of the original design, and try to use that in there. With regards to that, I think we have a little bit of a concern in its relationship to the existing building, because there's a large arched opening centered on that stage. I'm assuming that's what it is, where it's located. So I think we have to have and give some consideration and respect to the existing architecture and try to tie the two together so it doesn't look like it's added on without any respect to what the existing conditions are or what the original band shell was. Number two, I can't tell from the drawing, and there's no indication of what's going on there, but behind the band shell and in front of a large arch opening, you've got two large rectangles. What are they?
Those are planters.
Are those existing?
They're not. We're proposing those as raised planters to help with the ramps that are needed on the backside of them.
Are you making that opening between the two planters smaller than the opening in the arched area?
Yes.
And there's a reason for that?
There's no arched area behind the backside of this.
well, there's the big glass fronted windows that center.
Yeah, it's a large arched opening with glass in it. Yeah.
It's not an arched opening with glass. It's a glass opening, but it's not an arched opening. It's just a doorway at the moment.
Well, but it's got an arch at higher up on the facade.
A very large arch that's been enclosed with glass.
It's a defining architectural feature of the building.
Yeah, it is. It is a defining architectural feature and something that I think needs to at least be given some consideration. Additionally, you say on your comments, it says lack of benches and functional plaza space. I can understand the plaza space, but I can't understand the lack of benches because not because there's no benches there now. I understand that, but you don't show any benches in the plaza right now. Is there intent to put in additional benches in front of the stage?
We're still working through bench locations, but as far as benches dedicated for the stage or any bleachers or anything like that, those would all be brought in for performances. Benches would be placed throughout the park.
So they're movable benches. They're not permanent benches.
Currently, there are three circa 1970s concrete benches in the park, and then there are numerous fairly modern tables with benches around them that are kind of placed in the current area that has been recently overtaken for parking. So they've kind of been moved out of the way so that the cars have better access on the current plaza. So it's something that can be discussed in the future. This is looking at the bones of the park.
Right, I understand. It's preliminary. I understand that, but I'm just asking the question whether or not there was an intent to add permanent or temporary benches out in front of the stage.
I agree.
Out in front of the stage would be temporary.
Okay, and then I think this is just a matter of terminology, but number 7, you've got unshaded parking and shaded striping. I'm assuming you're just identifying it. You'd obviously restripe it, but I don't assume you're going to put in shaded parking for the parking, or yeah, shaded parking for the parking lot, for parking stalls, are you?
No, it was one avenue we were exploring, but currently we're not proposing it.
All right. Okay. All right, that's all I have.
Okay, Lynn?
Wait a minute, I do have one other question, and that is that on the north side where you're maybe modifying the existing building, we want to make sure that we presents us with the elevations to show what your intentions are on that.
Great. Thanks, Dan. Lynn, comments?
I find this really easy to understand, and I appreciate Maurice's comments about the dog park taking away from the use by people, and feel that people that live in the city really do walk their dogs around 15 blocks, and that's what they expect. And they're putting a dog park in down in Santa Rita Park, which gives another option there. So I'm not sure I'm really in favor of a dog park in Armory Park, but that's just my one vote. And as I'm sitting here in Blendman Inn, I do appreciate the addition of the Blendman Inn fence as a consideration. So thank you for that.
Okay, I'm gonna come on with a couple comments. I like that you are reintroducing the alleyways and the perimeter trees, and Eric and Matt, it is a very thoughtful design. The details need to be worked out in terms of lighting and the other stuff. Can you comment about the drainage basin and all of the desert plants? Are those going to be retained? They're not shown? Or are you planning on removing all the acacias and other things in that basin?
So you're talking about the staff parking that's being proposed?
No, there's the area that's now shown as beige that is just inside the property area is a retention basin that has a lot of native desert flora that is part of the 1975 planting master plan.
Yeah, the northeast corner, John, we're not planning on touching most of that northeast corner. That is correct.
Okay.
And
Which
even the saguaro, we're not just showing we didn't show the spot of the saguaro, it would be literally a dot on this scale. So
will they be retained or moved?
we are keeping the saguaro in place. We are going to work the parking or in that for the staff parking around the saguaro that's there. The agaves, we'll evaluate the condition of the agave, but that whole northeast corner, we're going to hopefully keep it as is, and if not, maybe add in some enhancements.
Okay, and you're also talking about replacing bump outs into the current parking area that have trees in them. Can you hook them up to the reclaimed water system at the park?
We are either going to tie them into the irrigation system and or provide depressions for water harvesting. That was one of our options, was to really try to maximize water harvesting in the site from the road, but it's all outside of our property. And so that's one of the things that we were talking about earlier on, how to kind of incorporate that.
Okay. It would be helpful to have a more specific plant list. There are a few things there, like there is one last sold, not very healthy mulberry that I understand why you want to take it out. You haven't been legally able to plant them in Arizona since the mid-90s. But it is kind of a last remnant of an historical feature. I assume you're keeping the Aleppo and the pines that are in the park? Okay.
Correct. It's just the mulberry and an ash to the south.
Yeah. I too would like to see a little bit of a change to the planning areas that emphasize the existing architecture. I understand that the kind of like angled concrete pad that comes out from almost the surface doors out into the area is no longer considered ADA accessible, and that you do need to do some other things. But I would encourage you to look at a backstop for any sort of covering that would be reminiscent of an historic band shell, since there has been one there for almost 115 years in some iteration. The 70s metal one is strangely oriented and is probably not, it's not considered a listing feature. The thing about the dog park, if it could be retained as grass and have very minimal fencing, it might be a possibility. But there are only 4 public areas downtown, and they are all basically paved except Armory Park, and it functions as the city park. And it sometimes gets crowds of up to 20,000 people. I'm wondering, I know I've seen the surveys from the teens, I haven't seen the most recent ones, but I'm not so sure an additional um, dog park of this very, very small size. I mean, combined, it's what, about 7,000 square feet? And the one at Santa Rita Park is more like 24,000 square feet. Um, and it's not separated between big dogs and small dogs. And introducing fencing visually into what is an open public green space isn't necessarily the best use of the other uses of this particular park, in my humble opinion. I understand the need for dogs and things, but I think I'd rather see an accommodation for people using long leads with their dogs walking on the park, and, you know, poop stations, to make sure that dogs are accommodated at Armory Park, but not necessarily for free range and a gravel, you know, fenced off lot like they're behind a Circle K. And I will comment on the Children's Museum. That is a turfed area. We did way back when we looked at a prior proposal for partial enclosure, suggest that the north area was less historic, and so they picked a better spot, and it doesn't look like any fencing, but it's hard to tell. There are different graphics available on the Children's Museum site because they've been raising funds for the last 2 years for the very elaborate playground and things. We do hope the 6 listed trees in that quadrant are retained. I think they're Washingtonian and Mexican fan palms that were planted in, at least by the 1920s, some as early as 1906. But I have a real question about artificial turf for that particular play area. Most of the countries in Europe are now banning it because it's turned out to be an environmental hazard due to microplastics and poisoning the soil and other things. And we're not so sure that it's just it may visually be green, but it may not be the best plan for that. But I don't think DG for a playground for the kids in that otherwise green area, which is part of both of these blocks being a combined park and having been so for 120 some years, is necessarily good. But, you know, accommodations could be made as plans change. And I realize it's a separate agreement and this is just a concept. I do appreciate the street trees. I would like to see more filled out plans that incorporate retaining some of the original landscape plan from way back when, the 20s versions that are visible in the historic stuff, the 74 master plan where some desert elements were included and other things, and would like feedback from the historic landscape subcommittee as well. So this is a courtesy review. We technically take no action, but our minutes will reflect that we are referring you there. Jan Wither is here now that we've been to the board. Jan, do you have any comments?
Thanks, John. I think since they're going to come before us Thursday, I think I'll just wait and comment then. I've made note of the comments that I'm not sure if your minutes will be available by Thursday, but I've made some notes in case nobody's able to attend.
I'm not so sure they will, but I hope the meeting will be posted by then.
Great.
Yes, for anyone who would like, please email the chair, Steve Grady or Jan. It is technically a public meeting, and it's going to be at 9 a.m. on Thursday. We're not supposed to use the chat. And I also see our,
John, this is Helen.
yes,
And I'd like to just go back over a couple issues here before we jump to the Children's Museum area.
sure,
I
please.
just wanted to create any to avoid any false perception of the band shell situation. I'm sure Eric knows this because we have talked about it before, but the band shell originally was built into the armory. It was part of the armory. And now that we have a separate building there, it's kind of a different situation. However, if there were particular situations in which you wanted to recreate that band shell phenomenon, there are on the market some very good constructible band shells that look actually quite traditional and are also removable as needed. And I think the concept of keeping this as a flexible space is probably very much in keeping with the needs of the park. So I think that's one thing that should be considered. And again, as far as the dog park situation is concerned, if the ultimate decision is to cut a piece out of the park for the dog park, just as it was for the bocce court or whatever, I think we need to make that as invisible and well transitioned as possible to try to maintain the visual extent. Just another reinforcement of the concept of not dividing public space into little bits and pieces.
I do have one more. Thank you, Helen. I also do have one more question about the potential fencing that you're talking about there, because the standard fencing for all public buildings, which we learned when they were enclosing the southern area, is for an 8-foot wrought iron fence with outward curved hooks. Are you talking about a 4-foot fence, a 5-foot fence, a 6-foot fence, shorter fencing? What
It would be a
sort of
5-foot
concept are you
fence.
all thinking?
Be a 5-foot fence. And currently we are showing a company that specializes in fencing. They have elements where you could put in what they call puppy panels. So that's why we were proposing that route. But we could initiate a local fabricator and do just about anything, whether it's a pipe fence or one that has rails like we were showing. So we have many options there.
Would it also be possible to consider, for instance, temporary fencing that could be put in existing post holes so it would be open for dogs' use on weekdays as opposed to public events on weekends, where they could be removable rather than a permanent?
That is one concept we have explored and haven't showed it for this concept, but yes.
I thought I'd just throw that out there so we can think outside the box here to accommodate everybody's needs. I do want to really thank you all for coming to us so early, being a not even a plan, and it's very obvious you've considered a lot of the historic details of the park in this very thoughtful exercise. So I do want to thank you all for this. Is there anything else on this particular item from the board or anybody else?
I have a question, which is, are we also considering the playground area, or is that a totally different project?
So I'll just touch base on this. So it is because of the desires of the community, the location of the playground. We went round and round and round trying to find best locations for that, and then started talking to Michael Becker and the Children's Museum and some of the things that they were looking to do. And the consensus was like, how is it possible for us to try to develop an idea, at least conceptually, to possibly put the playground on the north side of the Children's Museum. But we wanted to break the presentation up into two different projects because they're two different sites and we need to kind of move forward with both of them, but at the same time, they have, I think we felt that it would be easiest for you to vote saying we like more or less the direction you're heading on Armory Park. We like what your more or less directions on the Children's Museum, or we don't like it, and we wanted to get some clear distinction between the two because of some of the difficulties that we had to face.
Now that
That I think is important here is when we reviewed a previous effort to fence in part of the park, the Children's Museum Park area, that one of the recommendations was to consider this northern side. And I think it makes a great deal more sense than trying to place it elsewhere. So I think from a conceptual point of view, this is probably the best possible location.
I would like to comment also, though, that there had been discussions with TUSD of replacing and enhancing the playground at Safford School to function as a playground that would be open to the public now that TUSD has made the property available to the public for such things, and that it'd be good to reach out to TUSD and Catherine Kuhn, who's the current principal, and see if they have some thoughts on possibly using Safford as a site for the playground area rather than, again, blocking off public park. Just as a FYI. Maurice, were you about to say something?
Yes. Okay, the Children's Museum used to be the Carnegie Library, and it is an historical site. A couple of years ago, like we all know, the vote came up whereas we should let the Children's Museum use the south side as an additional enclosure for a playground, sort of. So we're moving forward towards 2 years, and now we're finding it on the north side. The Carnegie Library is still there. It's still a historic site, okay? And facing it with a playground does not seem to me to be a solution, whereas it's on the north side or as it was rejected on the south side. Now, if TUSD, offers to lend the city some land to put a playground, I will be behind it 100%. Okay, it still will be within the same area. It will serve the same demographics that would have been going to that playground, which currently belongs to a historic site, and that will, fit the bill as far as I'm concerned, which brings me another question here. If you look north of the Carnegie Library block, there's TEP. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the south side of the TEP site was supposed to be some kind of a green area. You correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. If the city is willing to, put up a playground and finds that the TUSD location is not compatible, maybe the question should be asked from TEP, whereas, their original plan to change the south side of their property is still going, and whereas it's going to be a green side, and if that's the case, to incorporate a playground in that location. But again, if USD is volunteering a piece of land for that purpose, I will go for it 100%. Okay. The way we found out that the south side of the Carnegie Library block does not fit some type of enclosed playground. The north side does not either. It has been an open site for many, many years, and that's what makes the beauty of it. Okay. And so that's my take on it.
To be fair, it looks like this current iteration is a largely open space, but I think we would need to review it further. It does not, it shows some sort of raised seating wall, but not necessarily any fencing for that. So I think we should defer that topic to another courtesy review for that particular site at a different parcel to the future before we get too involved here on that. TEP actually, yes, the South, they kept it as a separate parcel, and they were originally going to develop it as a public space. Then they decided they were going to sell it off for housing. Then they put in what was at the time a temporary, which is now a permanent parking garage, but that is potentially another site that would be more appropriate to fence private dedicated areas. And it might be worth asking the question again, if they have any interest in sharing that parcel with the larger public for the downtown region, since they're such limited spaces. Okay. Do you have the feedback you were expecting tonight? Eric laughs. Matt's like, okay.
No, we have. This has been great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lots to take away.
We're trying to be helpful, and again, thank you so much for coming so early in the process, so we can work, all of us who are stakeholders in this can participate in a fruitful discussion as plans get refined moving forward. Is there any timeline for actually more of a courtesy review of more finalized plans with plant schedules, lighting, and that sort of stuff, or are we really still at initial stages at this point? And I also understand it's about $1.5 million that's allocated to the bond program for Armory Park. Okay.
Correct. We are still in the initial stages, so
okay.
Long way to go, but this is a great start with great feedback.
Right.
Well, for $1.5 million, we should be getting a nice bandstand with a nice bench shell. Let's put it that way.
Okay, Maurice, we've heard that. Some of us agree, but you know, I think we're flogging a dead horse here now. So I think we ought to go ahead and move on and thank our guests and move on to item E. We've been at this for almost an hour on this topic, and we need to move forward. We have other people. So thanks so much for coming. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Jasmine.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Thanks all for the feedback.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is 4B. SD 1223-0017 0137 125 East 16th Street, and enclose a patio into a family room. Who's here to present for this particular case?
That would be me. Hi, everybody. My name is Stephen Newton. I'm the owner of 125 East 16th Street. Thanks so much for taking your evening to review this stuff with me.
What's your name again, sir? Stephen Newman?
Yep.
Yes, he's one of the property owners.
Okay, I'm going to make you co-host so you can share your screen.
Great, thank you.
You're good to go.
All right, so let's see here. Take the right presentation. Okay, so this is the existing house, 125 East 16th Street. The idea is basically to fill in the existing back porch and make it livable space that's also heated and cooled and insulated. Here's some site context. So here's the development zone map. The red portion is where the house is located, and the green is the development zone area. These are a few of the facades that are on 6th Ave that are very close to the house. These are some 5th Avenue facades. These are 16th Street facades. And these are some of the Arizona Avenue facades, where most of the work is going to be visible to the public eye. So the following proposal outlines our plan to enclose the current rear porch, adding an additional 500 livable square feet to the existing 972. This initiative aims to enhance the aesthetic appeal of the structure by beautifying the western facade that faces South Arizona Avenue, and the proposed course of action is designed to uphold the integrity of the building's existing footprint, historic architectural style, and we believe it is a thoughtful integration that seeks to seamlessly blend the functionality of an elevated aesthetic, resulting in harmonious and impactful enhancement to the property and the surrounding area. So these are some aerial photographs of the site, the house, and the existing mass. We're not proposing to build beyond the existing footprint of the building. It's basically to just enclose an existing porch. So in this plan here, we have just the shaded hatched area of where the porch will be enclosed. Here are some elevations of existing before and after. The existing facades would be on the left side, and the proposed are on the right side. And all the new proposed windows and doors are listed out in the small window schedule over to the far right. This is part of the permits drawings that were submitted. You see in the upper left, there's a plan of the area. There's essentially going to be 2 windows proposed on South Arizona Avenue, 2 double wooden French patio doors, another window, and just a single patio door. So those are all the proposed work. The existing house is going to remain untouched, and the existing lighting plan is also going to remain untouched. So this is what the project is currently looking like. We propose to use CMU because we saw in an earlier permitting set that was the structural system selected for the wall makeup. The roof is currently held up by existing headers and posts in the corner of the porch. So these are non-load bearing CMU walls. And there will be stud walls built in front of them, which will be packed full of insulation and as well. This is some close-up detail shots of the existing window type, as well as how the windows themselves were detailed. You can see that there's some stone that was covered over with stucco for the base of the building. And here's some rendering. So this is the existing house, and this is how the proposed work should look. You can see it in the left side of the rendering there. These awnings are existing, so we match them with the new windows. Here's a before and after. And here's a additional view looking in the opposite direction of how the house might appear with the enclosed porch. And that's basically it.
Hey, thank you for presenting. Kind of don't know where to start with this one because this is one of those funny houses that we have all noticed a lot of things going on. Michael, is it technically a zoning violation or just factually because the work has started?
John, you mean a zoning violation for what?
Well, because they've started the construction with the CMU walls of enclosing the porch currently.
Well, I would not. It could be that it has not been reported to us as work done without permit. So
Okay,
just review it as they were coming to you and proposing to do this.
okay. Great. It was a little difficult for me to get a handle on it because the images of it are now scrubbed from Google Street View. The aerials are still there, and they also show some constructions behind a new wall that is visible that is not part of this presentation. Um, it's basically, it looks like an 8-foot masonry wall with brick capping from the original facade going east, set back behind two new panels on a recently approved fence with two double doors into it. And then from the aerial, it looks like there are two new Ramada-like structures along the east side of the building attached to it. And then there's potentially another Ramada in the backyard that is showing up in your pictures you're showing us here. So I'm wondering why you're just showing the enclosure of the porch since there's been a lot of other things since this property was permitted in 2010 to add that new porch.
Okay, so we purchased this house um, around creeping on 3 years ago. And the way that we purchased the house is basically like this. It had these awnings that were existing on the house, as well as an HVAC system that was put on the roof. And when we went through the inspections and everything, nothing really came up. There was no liens on the property or anything. So we figured that there was nothing wrong, and we purchased the house. In terms of any new work that has been done to the property, you can see in this picture that there is a wooden pergola in the backyard that has since been dismantled and sold off. We do still have existing pergolas on the side of the house, so on the east side, which we're planning on keeping, but they are furniture. There's no structural concrete work or any of that with those pergolas. They're basically a product you assemble on site. Now, the only real construction that we did was the garden wall that's on the right side of this picture. You can't really see it. But yeah, it was brought up to me by Jody before the meeting that these things were in contention, and we're totally open to submitting them through any permitting processes or anything. We just need the board's oversight, basically.
Okay. And to be
Yes. So what will happen is you are admitting to doing some work here without actually going through the review, whether they're permanent or whatever. You're supposed to go through the historic review process. Once you purchase a property in the historic district, I believe you should have known that you need to go through the review before doing anything else. So I would recommend to the board, just like Johnny told you, you need to listen to what the board says and just follow the direction from the board here. And I would recommend also that whatever the board feels that has been done or existed on the property, this is the best time to just do it rather than do just the push that you are talking about, and then you come back for another thing. Because now that we know, I can tell you that our inspector will be behind. So my recommendation to the board would be for the board to just review everything that they believe that has been going on here, so that you address it one time, not just a bunch.
Okay.
And that may include.
And to be fair, we don't want you to be fined for having done work without a permit. And what appears to be there now looks like you or whoever else did a really nice job with it. but it should be part of the proposal that we're looking at, so we have a better scope. So the ramadas to the east, the wall, the new panels attached to the low 4-foot fence that was approved through a minor review in 2021, and whatever you're doing beyond the building. A couple things that I noticed, that the plans that are with the city show that there is were chimneys and they were supposed to be there, but it looks like this is a newer shingle job that may predate you, that the tops of the chimneys as they protrude through the roof are no longer there, and that may be not your problem because you bought it this way, but they're supposed to stay. The 3 awnings we know were approved, as was the corrugated metal fence. It looks like you're going to remove the metal fence along the new wall that you're enclosing, or has partially done some of the work for. Over there. It's hard to tell about the original bathroom window because it was a repaired vertical window on the east side that was double hung, and you're showing it as a horizontal window. So if you are planning or have replaced that window, we'd like to know.
That window is as it's drawn here. It is a fixed semi-rectangular window.
Okay, well, it's replaced from what was approved on the plans that we have access to, because the 2010 plans, which are available on the pro site, do show that it was a restored original wood window that was vertical in nature, about 18 inches wide by about a little over 2 feet tall, and they were allowed to put on new concrete sills. I'm not sure who did the stucco job, but it looks like gunite on top of stucco at this point. And it did have originally a rock wall there, but you're also showing a recreation of a rock wall with stucco on at the lower section of the CMU wall. Is that correct, or is that just going to be smooth stucco all the way down to the street?
We were thinking of just matching exactly what's on the existing house, just for consistency.
So like the stick-on fake bricks and then stuccoing it to match the house is what you're thinking there?
Something like that, or if we could get away with using the natural material, that might be the better looking of the two.
Okay. I mean, conceptually, I don't necessarily have a problem with what you're showing with, I'm not, now that I see that you're showing, and we don't have that page where you're dividing the new back room into 2 rooms, so the French doors make sense for the Western new room, but 3 new doors on a single room is a little out of the ordinary. It would be helpful to have pictures of French doors, but I know there are some in the development zone, so I'm not going to question that. And wood, we always prefer, but conceptually for the enclosure, I don't necessarily have a problem, but I'd like to see a updated plan that includes all the stuff that's been done and ask for permission because you'll probably be approved for it. Because I will say it looks like you are doing a nice job, but it should be all part of a project that the city has approved, and you have that paperwork, or getting a permit in the future for anything is going to be helpful.
Right. Okay.
So I've done my comments. Other board members, comments?
Yeah, I think your point is correct. I think we should see more plans, okay, more details. Obviously, a lot of things have been done that should not have been done before permits. So I think from here on, okay, we need to know a little more about it. So far, it looks good. Okay. I don't think a fine should be given. Okay. I think it could well fit into the neighborhood. This particular house had been neglected for a number of years, and the previous owner really didn't do much about it. Okay, so it's a good thing that it's finally getting a serious fixing. But I think we need to know more about it, more details before we can make a decision here. I feel like we're in front of a fait accompli, an accomplished fact, and I'm not crazy about the idea. So I think the changes can be positive, but I think we need to know more details before we greenlight it. That's my take on it.
Other board members?
Hi, this is Helen. I think the plan is a good one. And I think the only question that I would have is how you can wrap this all up together so you have one cohesive, detailed plan. So going forward, there's no question about what's going on. So that would be my only concern. I think you're going the right direction. I think it's good. And it's just a question of getting it documented properly.
Dan, anything?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. From a standpoint of what we're approving as board members for Armory Park, I don't know that I have a problem with it at all. My two basic questions is the existing windows that you have in there now, are those metal clad double hung windows?
They are actually Gelvin 100% wood windows, wood on the inside and outside.
Okay, they look quite nice. They almost look like they're so well finished. They look like it's a metal cladding, but if it's wood, that's great. And you're going to be using the same type of window on the smaller windows that you're putting in, as well as the doors, correct? The French doors?
Yes.
It's the same product?
Yes, same product, same company that manufactures them. We're matching everything.
On your existing roof plan, you show 4 2x3 attic vents. You don't show them on anything else, and I don't see them on any of the elevations, so I'm not too sure why you've got 4 2x3 attic vents. Are they going to be exposed on the outside somehow?
I would definitely hope not.
What are they doing then?
Attic vents.
Look
That's
on the
curious.
existing roof plan.
It also says
Yes, I do see that.
It also says you're going to paint the roof white, which you can't do.
Which is not going to happen. Yeah, no. Yeah, I don't think that there will be no exposed attic vents to the roof, nor will the roof itself be painted white.
You're supposed to vent the attic. I mean, it's less of a problem in the Southwest, I know that. But how is the existing attic vented? If it is at all?
I would hope that it is vented, but I would have to study.
Yeah, the assessor site has a picture taken in 2000, and it originally had a raised vent cap at with a little segment of a pyramidal roof on the very top. That was taken out when it was re-roofed in 2010.
Okay, the ridge vent, with the ridge vent in.
Yeah, it had a ridge vent all the way along the ridge line, and that's now gone. So I don't know that
Yeah, actually, I do remember seeing that there were some vents that were between each of these rafters.
On the eaves. Well, you certainly, you usually on the old house, there's enough leakage that it's not a problem. But I mean, if you're going to have some venting, I mean, like something on the roof, I mean, I don't see that it needs to be 2 foot by 3 foot. And you don't need 4 of them in terms of air volume, or square inches. So I would like to see that reviewed and addressed. So that if we're going to see something on the outside, I'd like to know what it is.
For sure.
The other things are issues with your drawings and your permit, because on the electrical plan, you've got a load calculation and you say provided a 100 amp service. But you show a 200 amp service, which I'm assuming, is that a new service or is it an existing 100 amp service that you're changing out, or what's going on there?
I believe it's an existing 100 amp service,
So, but
and
you're saying it says existing 200 amp service on the riser diagram.
I guess I'll have to double check that and ask my contractor.
Yeah, you may want to check that because it looks like a smaller 100 amp box on the outside
Yeah.
of the building, but it is not shown on your new plan as staying in the same location. So you need to add that to your elevations.
Well, I'm assuming it is staying at the same location, so you won't have to rewire everything on the existing.
Right.
pump. But I think you need to clarify that because we want to know it's not a problem. You got a new 200 amp service, fine, as long as it's going in the same location, and that's what it's doing. That's great. I just clarify that.
For sure.
It also mentions that you're talking about mini splits for this new area, so you'll need to show those on your plans if they're not going to be incorporated in the HVAC system that is currently on the main structure.
Right. Okay.
So like if they're like little floor units and you're going to put them in the backyard, it's perfectly fine. Just show us where they're going to go and that they're not going to be like aimed at a neighbor.
Of course. Yeah, I'll share those.
Stuff like that.
The other question I have is a clarification more for the city and for you to understand, but you've got a detail, it's called the existing post detail. If you look at that foundation, it looks like you've got a 4-inch slab on top of a 4-inch slab. The lower slab's got a toe down and the other one's got another footing that goes underneath the existing 10 by 10 wood column. I have no idea how you do that. I don't know if that's done already or what's going on, but I can't imagine how you could possibly construct that unless that's an existing condition. But if it's existing, why even draw it?
Yeah, I believe that is an existing condition. My contractor might have pulled that from an earlier set of drawings. I agree, it's a bit redundant because none of these walls proposed are actually in fact load bearing.
Well, that detail shouldn't be on the drawings. If I was a city, I would have a real question with that. I think it's a problem because it can't be built as shown. So, you know, you can do what you want. Has the city approved these plans?
The city has reviewed it. They're basically waiting for historic review to go ahead and do their rounds, and then I believe zoning will get a chance to review it afterwards.
We're part of a zoning review. After you get a director's decision, once it is approved through us and then PRS and the planning director, then you'll have to go to building permits, and then they'll tell you everything else that you're actually going to need based upon the record of what they have. So they're separate issues. Michael can help you walk through some of that sort of thing. Another thing that is kind of a fallacy on your front porch. The proposal in 2010 of putting in the windows on either side of the door showed a 4-section set of windows and another 4-section set of windows. They are not the same size, as you can see from the front of the building.
Right.
One of them is a set of 3 and one of them is a set of 2. So you may want to revise those. That's what it actually looks like. And
yeah, that's what they built.
Yeah, that's what they actually built. So you just may want to revise that is as built.
Right. Okay.
Pat, any comments?
Yeah, I've had just a couple. We've already covered this, I'm sure, but I'm still unclear how all this work got started without being reviewed.
Nobody turned them in, apparently.
I beg your pardon?
Nobody formally turned them in.
Well, I mean, so how do we address that?
We fix it now through the design review process, hopefully.
Well, it seems that it establishes a bad precedent for other similar projects in the neighborhood. And I'm kind of concerned that we just are basically just, we'll say, well, it's there, it doesn't look too bad, we'll go ahead with it. I am concerned with that particular part of the project, as well as the other installations that are going to be or are in or going to be placed in the backyard that we don't have plans for. So
one of the difficult problems with this particular parcel is it was one of the long-standing Witten properties, but it has gone through 4 changes of hands within the last 3 years that various and sundry participants have done various things without seeking any permits since 2010 on the property. So the current property owner is trying to fix what he has and get it approved so that he's in good order, and we're trying to help him to do that.
all right, then I'll go ahead. It's with reservations, but okay, that explains it. Thank you.
Lynn, do you have any comments?
Nope. Good luck.
Well, actually, now it is our prerogative. I would like to entertain a motion that we continue this case so that the applicant can put together a complete package for a review of what has been done, what is proposed to be done, so that after he's done with us and the other stages of review, he has a perfectly legal property that is approved by the city.
I will entertain the motion for
I've
continuance.
got a question before you do the motion. What is it that he also needs to put on his drawings to clarify what is to be done?
Well, there is no mention of the new solid masonry wall with a door in it that is along the street frontage that goes from basically the original building all the way to the property line that you now go through 2 new gates into the east side yard that has ramada structures, whether attached or detached, that are visible from Google Earth that should be part of our review process so that we review a completed property package.
Okay.
And we don't have
Good.
that
Okay,
tonight.
very good.
So Maurice has made a motion for continuance. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Stan. Roll call. I say aye. Helen?
Aye.
Pat? Maurice?
Hi.
Dan?
Aye.
And Lynn?
Aye.
Great. So, Stephen, I hope we gave you enough information of try to help out. I do have one other quickie thing. I don't think the screens with a solid meshing, and I understand why you put them on your 0 lot line on there, were part of the minor review that took place in 2021. So can you show us the screens that you're adding to Windows 2, just so that it's complete and the city knows what you did, and we'll be all set. I hope you understand we're trying to help you out here.
Yeah, absolutely, and I appreciate that. I do. Thank you so much.
Okay. So whenever you can get revised plans and other stuff into Michael and he accepts them, he'll reschedule it. And we typically have meetings every 3rd Tuesday. So if you're ready and he gets them in time that we can take a look at them, we could see you next month or the following month, or if you need be, we could potentially schedule a special meeting, but I have a feeling it'll take a month to get everything kind of worked out at least. And we're hoping to have a live hybrid meeting at Safford School next month.
There's a question from Martha on the screen.
Martha, yes.
I may. Hi, I'm a past chair of this group. I'm wondering, a little concerned about the need to see a difference between the old side of the building and the new side of the building. The way that you want to make it all look like one gives a false sense of history, I think, on the railroad side. And you might want to consider how to do that. I'm kind of surprised somebody didn't bring that up. Do you understand me, John?
Yes, it's actually a very good comment. That's why I was asking about whether you're going to try to replicate the stone base. You don't have to.
Oh,
I wouldn't recommend it. Or you have to be able to distinguish between the original part and your new part. And with that,
gotcha.
we'll go back to being a silent watcher.
Thank you, Martha.
Thank you.
We're all trying to pitch in. We're kind of in a weird situation this year. We just got 3 of our board members approved today to be able to even have this meeting because of some interesting situation from the city clerk's office over the last couple of weeks. So,
If I may say something, if I remember well, the bottom of that building, which is now currently painted in white, okay, used to be some kind of lava rock. Okay, it was just a buildup of rock was the bottom. Now I don't know what they put on top of it. Okay.
Yeah, it's a shame that they did paint on top of it, honestly.
Right. But like I said, those used to be lava rocks at the bottom.
and actually, just as a word of advice, Stephen, the building is actually listed on the National Register as being Adobe, not CMU block. CMU block was what was put on the plans by the Whittons for ease of application so that they didn't have to draw it. But you probably have Adobe walls with a new construction out of CMU in the back area.
Gotcha. Okay. Good to know.
So you know, we have access to the property record card. You can get it if you are on Google Chrome by going to the map Tucson and then the layers list, but you can also request it from Michael Taku that can provide it. It was built in 1906.
Great. Thank you.
As an Adobe structure.
Okay.
Or a little bit of a history there. Okay, thank you for coming out tonight. We appreciate it, and we'll try to get these things taken care of in a timely fashion for you.
For sure. Thank you so much, everybody.
Great. All right, on to item 5, design guidelines project. I'm not even going to mention it tonight, but hopefully we will get somewhere with it. And then we have to go to number 6, elections. Per our bylaws, we are supposed to have elections at the first meeting of each year, ideally in January. We have a position of chair for the year, vice chair for the year, and secretary for the year. I'm willing to stand again as chair. Maurice was 2023 vice chair. As you all may know, Sarah decided to not join us again as secretary. She was really helpful providing notes to me to fix LARs. And she had the technological know-how to set up all the equipment, which is owned by APNA for a hybrid meeting. But she's gone MIA. I'm trying to get the equipment from David, and I will try to learn it. But Ken Taylor, who used to be our IT person, has offered to try to teach me how to use it. So hopefully we can do another test with Michael and staff at Safford so that we can do hybrid meetings starting again next month. But that's why we're on Zoom tonight. So there are 6 of us in total. I'm willing to stand for chair again. Does anyone else want it?
No.
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 All right. Do I need to be formally nominated by somebody, Michael?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I will nominate John for chair of Armory Park Historic Zoning Advisory Board.
I second that nomination.
Thanks, Lynn. Okay. Can we do this by acclamation or does this have to be roll call, Michael?
Roll call.
Okay, so me as chair, motion and second, roll call. I say aye. Helen,
I,
Pat,
Aye.
Maurice,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Lynn.
Aye.
Great, that passes 6-0. Maurice, do you want to be chair again or somebody else? Who wants to be
Yes.
co-chair?
You mean vice chair?
Vice chair?
Yes.
I
I
nominate
volunteer to
Maurice
be
for
vice chair
vice
again.
chair.
Okay, Lynn just nominated Maurice. Do we have a
I
second?
second. I second.
And Stan. Great. Roll call. I say yes. Helen,
yes,
Pat,
Yes.
Maurice,
Yes.
Stan,
Yes.
Lynn.
Yes.
Great. All right. We have a chair and a co-chair. Do any of you people want to be secretary?
No.
Anyone want to volunteer? We
No.
could leave the position open pending getting some new members who might be tech savvy enough to actually take it over the course of whatever. I can continue to send in a draft LAR to Jody, as I've often done this past year. I was secretary way in the past. What's the pleasure of the board? Do we leave it open? Someone
I
want
would
to?
say, yeah, I would say for the time being, yes, until somebody, until something comes up. Yes.
Anybody else? Michael, do we need to take a motion to leave that seat vacant?
Not necessarily.
Okay,
There's no volunteer for it.
okay,
It's
we'll leave
nobody
it open.
available for it.
And
So
so
just leave it as such.
I'll do the duties as presidential duties, with Maurice as my backup on that one, if
Okay.
everybody's okay with that. And we will move forward. Okay. Thank you, everybody. I'm happy to do it one more time. Just so you all know, both Pat and I rotate off. Our terms are up at the end of the year. And so we will not have a full 6 members. We have to get 2 to 3 new people at least this year in. And anybody who's recently on or in the middle of their term who would consider taking over the position for 2025 needs to step up during the year. And hopefully we can get some more people and really reactivate this board.
If I make a suggestion,
Yes.
APNA is coming up with a newsletter. I think it would be advisable to it would be a good thing to put some kind of advertisement in the newsletter that ABZAB could use some extra members.
I was planning to do that, Maurice. I happen to be secretary of ATNA this year too, and I'm preparing an updated article on ABSAB for that particular newsletter. So I will be putting out an appeal to other people in the neighborhood, and maybe we can even rope in a few old hands, some of whom I see a fixed picture of. Only teasing. All right, we'll move on to item number 7, minor reviews. Michael, do you have anything? I have not done any since the ones that were reported in the past.
Yeah, those are the ones that we have done in every part. I do not have any that I'm going to schedule for every part within this week or so.
Okay. Call to the board, item 8. I'll just go around round robin. Helen, do you have anything?
the only thing that I have is that the National Park Service will be here from 11 to 1 on Wednesday. to present information about the Butterfield National Historic Trail. And after that, there will be a membership meeting for people who are interested in being involved in the project.
Helen, since I'm acting secretary, can you send me that? I got a notice from them and I can just share it for information purposes to the board.
Sure. I'll send you the press release.
Okay, great. Pat, anything?
No.
Maurice, anything?
No, everything quiet on the eastern front.
Good for you. Stan, anything?
Nope.
Okay, Lynn, anything?
Nothing. Thank you all for being patient with me as I learn what I'm doing.
Okay, and now there are only two people hanging in who both have standing to speak. So, Jan, any comments?
No comments, John. Thank you very much.
Martha, comments?
No, I'm good. I realize that I really have to change my picture, but other than that, it's all good.
Wonderful. Thank you for coming tonight. All right.
And
I have a couple comments. The Historic Commission held their meeting. Let's see. On the 10th, PRS had a meeting and approved the case that was brought by Val Blanning last month. Moving forward, the only thing they did is they decided to do a built-up roof after looking at it, and they thanked us profusely for having, especially you, Stan, notifying that. And I think they're having one later, the 28th. I did go to the Midtown Reliability report or stakeholders meeting also on the 11th. There is no area of Armory Park that is now currently on a list for any extensions of premises. So I wanted to give you that as an update. There will be a public meeting with revised stuff and new proposals on February 8th. I will send that out to everybody when they put out the meeting flyer when it comes through. And otherwise, I don't really have anything else. Michael, item 9, future
Ellen,
agenda items.
I
Oh,
think people know that the University of Arizona has put a hold on taking the Solari Chapel apart.
yes, that. Thank you for mentioning that. I'm glad they did. It is. Steve K just posted his weekly newsletter at 4:58 p.m. today, and he covers it. And they are backtracking on it because they wanted to just take pictures and demolish the Solari Chapel, even though it's on the National Register District, and have basically pushback from people like Helen and a lot of people on the Historic Commission. They have stopped their plans to demolish that and are going to open discussions to community stakeholders, would you say, Helen? I don't know. The university
It's the unmuting part of it. Yes, they have said that they will work with community stakeholders on this. And we hope that this will take place. I mean, it's been a big fight to make them recognize that they have something very important to do.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that back up. All right, anybody else, or can we move on to item 9? Michael, future agenda items. What do you think it's looking like? More stuff in the pipeline? I know this case may come back if they're ready.
Yeah, that 125 E16, they're ready. We'll be ready to put them back. And then we are working on trying to bring 327 E13 back to you for review. Uh,
Is that
our,
the one that's been a zoning violation with that all new funky wall that's been floating around for the last 3 years that they built without a permit?
yes.
Okay, so we'll be reviewing that. Okay, good.
And then we are also working on trying to get 119 East 16th Street to you for that front door thing. So Rick Sarate is working on these two cases. I don't know when they'll come to you, but we have not forgotten about them. We're working on them.
I do have a question. Do we have an update on that six house project on 18th Street?
Which one is that?
There was an FLD proposal that was brought before us, and we requested that once they actually designed the buildings, that it come back to us so that we can actually review the buildings which were not designed. I do know it's the FLD project at 18th and South 4th and Herbert, that lot next to Kelly Kongso's property, for 6 units. And I know that the plot plan and FLD plots were approved by mayor and council earlier this year, but they should come back to us to approve their building design.
Okay.
Do you have
You're
any
not,
update, Michael?
you're not talking about Fernando's FLD, right?
No, we're talking about the one that,
Steve Nelly. You're talking about the one of Steve Nelly.
it's the one at 750 South 4th Avenue and faces all along 18th on the bicycle thing. That's an FLD project for 6 structures.
Oh yeah, I know
Yes.
that one. No,
That one,
yeah, they still have to come back to you. They just came for the concept.
yes.
That one was brought by Steve Neely and what's his name again? He used to be on PRS. Why am I forgetting his name?
I'm forgetting it, spacing it too. He's a nice architect. It was a good proposal, but it was
Yeah,
undesigned. So it'll
yeah,
be coming back at some future date so we
yeah,
can review the
yeah.
building.
That was Jim Sauer.
Jim Sauer, thank you.
Yeah, no, that will come back to you once because they came just for the concept and all that. They are going to come back to you. The other thing I would like to say is that for one of Fernando's project, 815 South 4th, I had an issue with them because one of this thing that was approved in 2019, he went and decided to add a porch, which was never part of the approved plan. And so we held it up, telling him that there were just two things. Either you go back and redesign to meet what was approved in 2019, or you have to go back to our back. So he decided to redesign and take out the porch and bring it back to the way it was approved in 2019. So that one is sailing through the review, the approval process right now.
Okay. And then the other property that I think Fernando may possibly live in is just an ongoing situation. We'll hear about it some future date.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Good to know. Okay, I think we're finally there. Thank you for holding in for a couple of hours. I move to adjourn at 8:31 p.m. Thank you all very much. And
And before we go, on behalf of PDSD, I want to thank everybody who decided to uh, renew their term of office to be here today, because if they didn't do that, we would not be having a meeting today. And we do appreciate all the volunteer times that you put in to help the city and to help historic preservation in our community. Thank you all for that. And
You know,
please,
it was a tight squeeze because we get the email Friday, and the city was closed yesterday.
yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. I thank all of you for making the effort that you did, because it wasn't easy.
I
Uh,
haven't gotten all the confirmations from the city clerk's office, but I have signed notarized oaths from all members. So everybody who voted tonight, all 3 of you new ones coming back, are legal.
yeah, no, I know
Hallelujah.
that.
It's a very good thing. Okay. Michael, we'll need to get together once I get the equipment from Sarah, and we're gonna have to do a test one, hopefully with either she or Ken Taylor, so that I can learn how to set up the equipment at Safford so we can do hybrid meetings. So are
Sure.
you generally available or around over the next few weeks?
Yeah, I am. I am. So whenever he's ready, let me know. We'll come, we'll do a test drive. You will be learning, I'll be learning, so that even if Ken is not there, we can actually just do it. So
Yeah,
let's do it.
I'll just learn the equipment. I'm not tech savvy, but I will do my best effort to be able to facilitate this, because I really believe that live hybrid meetings are in the best interest of the public for participation and other things. So I'll do my best. I, her father knows I'm looking. I may have to go like over there at 4 in the morning and knock on her trailer window to get the equipment from her. I know where she lives.
Okay.
Thank you all. Let's wrap this up. Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night.
And Michael, can you get this posted pretty quick so I can get you an draft LAR?
Sure.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks all. Night night.